Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Awareness Training for community members. My name is Amy Onler and I am a mental health therapist at Champion State of Mind. Our primary office, I'm sure you're familiar with, is in Estherville, and I am in the outlying office in Spencer. So I just wanted to take a few moments to explain kind of what the outline of today will be. This is just a pre-recorded meeting. Therefore, if you need to pause, need to take a break, get a drink, whatever you need to do, please feel free to do that. You can do that at your own leisure, which is why we did the pre-recording. I did want to remind everyone that there will be a question and answer session that will be scheduled after the presentation of this. And so with that, there will be a time to ask questions, to get some feedback on the presentation, to talk about things that you would like to know going further as a community member. So that, again, will be announced at a later date and time as to when that is, but that will be live with myself and whomever chooses to participate following watching this video. So today we're just going to go through some basic understanding of what mental health is, what it looks like, how it presents itself in our communities, and how community members can really start to make a change for those children, parents, adults, anyone in the community that you notice may be having a mental health need. So with that being said, I am going to screen share and start the presentation. So what you can expect from today's training, you can expect that we're going to talk about some of the primary responsibilities and roles of the different community members. I'm guessing most of those community members are probably represented in watching this training, but just wanted to go through some of the primary people that we kind of thought of when we were thinking of what community members we would like to kind of share this information with. After that, we're going to look at just a basic explanation of what mental health is. We're going to look at what it looks like in people so that when you are encountering different people along the way, you have some idea of what mental health concerns look like so that you'll know ways that you can maybe help be the difference for those people and navigate them to the resources and services that they might need. Along with that, we're going to look at what the primary diagnoses are that are seen in adolescents, children, and adults. So I'm just going to break down a few of those diagnoses, give you some statistics about them, and just talk in general about ways that those people may present and implications that that may lead towards in their need for services, need for navigating them to other things in the community and maybe outside of the community. Following that, we're going to lead into what we can do as community members. And then we're going to lead into some prevention strategies to try to work more towards prevention work instead of being reactive to the mental health concerns in our area. And last, I'm going to run through just some basic resources, and we'll be able to provide you handouts at my email address at the end of the presentation. So with that being said, the community members that we kind of came up with when we were thinking about this training are listed on this slide. So we thought about elected officials, law enforcement, doctors or hospital staff, school staff or the AEA, churches, mental health agencies, food banks, HUD housing, DHS, attorneys or legal representatives, probation officers, and the list could go on, right? So when you look at this list, you think about the fact that all those people are in the community and they all play a very specific role. They have different responsibilities based on what their role is in the community, and some of those responsibilities include ensuring the betterment of the community. So most of these members of the community probably have encountered lots of people who have mental health concerns, and they found themselves wondering, well, what can I do? I'm just a community member. What can I do? I just help with their youth group. What can I do? I just ensure that they have housing. So I'm here to tell you that along the way, everyone plays a very important role in people's lives, whether they are just struggling in the moment, whether they're having an adjustment to something, or whether they have a formal mental health diagnosis. So any of the community members on this slide, any of the roles that they play, and any additional people in the community all play a really important role. And that's why I'm really excited to get this conversation going with people in the community in order to determine what information we can provide you, what would be helpful, and how to go from here in order to make the community feel stronger in really starting to break this mental health stigma and bring awareness to the community about what this looks like for us. So just to jump into it, I just want to bring light to some mental health statistics. I think a lot of times that we have a lot of thoughts in our brain about maybe what mental health is, what the numbers look like, but I think when we actually look at the facts and we know how prevalent it is, that it really helps. So I'm going to show this video that's just some really basic mental health facts that will just bring a better understanding to everyone so that we can all get in the same headspace surrounding the need for this discussion about bringing mental health awareness. So I don't know about you, but when I saw all those statistics, I thought to myself, there's a lot of need out there. There's a lot of people in our community that are really struggling with strong mental health concerns that really have a need to be supported, be loved, be heard, and to help be navigated to the services that they need. So in order to look at that further, and in order to really break down those statistics, I just want to go back to what a basic understanding of mental health is. Mental health is the emotional, psychological, social, and physical well-being of a person. It's the way that we handle stress, make choices, relate to others, and adapt to changes or challenges. We all know that when people are in good mental health and a place of well-being, that they're able to handle stress and make choices or handle challenges in a really appropriate and acceptable manner. However, when they're struggling with mental health, a lot of times that creates difficulty. That makes stress harder to handle, it makes choices seem bigger, and it makes challenges seem impossible. Just because there are things that are challenging or there's mental health that's present, I don't want anyone to think that that means there's something wrong with them or there's something they're doing wrong. I also don't want anyone in society to think, well, they just need to pull up their bootstraps and get through it. That's not how mental health works. There's a lot of things that lead to mental health, and it's usually not about choices. Some of the factors that lead to actual mental health concerns are biological factors, life experiences, trauma, family history, financial stressors, and toxic relationships. we all know that oftentimes a lot of these things make mental health concerns even stronger. And a lot of these things are the things that we notice within the people that we encounter that we know are struggling with mental health. So if you notice these factors in people, I really encourage you to ensure that they have the help they need, be supportive, ask if they're okay, be a listening ear, do what you can to be the change in their world, because you never know if you'll be the change that day, if that's the change that they need. So when we're talking about mental health and we're talking about having a good place in mental health, this is a great visual that I'm going to explain to you guys. So this is a visual that I explain to the students and to the parents in terms of just ways to understand their own mental health and their own well-being. Well-being is a term I'm going to use a lot in this course because we say that people who would reach the point of well-being really just feel like all the factors in their lives are really going well, which is a place of significant good signs of mental health. So when you are in a place of well-being, you are the person in that canoe. You're just riding down the river, no concerns at all. You'll notice that above the person in the canoe, there's a place that says chaos, which just kind of looks like a bunch of squiggle lines and a bunch of black, right? There's no rhyme or reason. You'll notice below it, there's rigidity, which is like bricks. So in order to make that brick wall, we probably had to have levels, we had to measure, we probably had to cut pieces of brick. So there's a lot of steps that took in order to get that wall just exactly right, which makes that part very, very rigid. So I'm going to explain this visual to you a little bit further using the concepts from Dr. Daniel Siegel. So I want you to imagine a peaceful river running through the countryside. That's your river of well-being. Whenever you're in the water, peacefully floating along in your canoe, you feel like you're generally in a good relationship with the world around you. You have a clear understanding of yourself, of other people, of your relationships, of your life, and of what you need. You can be flexible and you're stable and you're at peace. If I asked you how your day was on those days, you would tell me your day is pretty good. This is when we consider you to be in your wise mind or in a stage of complete whole-brained well-being. This is, again, a place where you feel as though all of those stressors that are happening around you are manageable. They're things that you can tackle, and they're things that are not going to overcome you. So sometimes we're in that place, right? But sometimes, though, you float along and you veer too close to one of the two riverbanks. This causes different problems depending on which bank you approach. One bank represents chaos, where you feel completely out of control. You are caught up in the pull of the rapids and the confusion and the turmoil of the day. You feel like anything that happens just sets you completely into a tornado effect of emotions. You feel like you can't handle anything further, and you just continue to go astray. The other bank is the bank of rigidity. Rigidity is the one where you impose control on everything and everyone around you. Excuse me. You're not willing to adapt or negotiate. During the stage of rigidity, you want to know exactly what to expect, what's coming, what's next, where you're going, who's going to be there, what you'll need to bring, the times that it will happen, so on and so forth. And when you do that, it slowly brings you a feeling of peace. Not the peace that the river of well-being brings you, but the peace of rigidity. So we all move back and forth between these banks throughout our days every day. We all meet people that we know are in one of the outer banks or that are in the river of well-being. So whether you're feeling frustrated about something went wrong in your day, you've met someone that you know is having a mental health concern, you're feeling overwhelmed by the day-to-day demands, you're feeling frustrated and down by the mental health concerns in the community, whatever it may be, all of these things can be identified as situations that are going to make us end up in either the banks of chaos or the banks of rigidity. Essentially, it's said that all moments of survival lead to being in either a place of chaos or a place of rigidity. But it's our role as community members, as mental health providers, as parents, as teachers, as coaches, as loved ones, to help people find their way back out of the chaos or out of the rigidity into that river of well-being. Does that mean that chaos isn't going to happen or rigid thinking isn't going to happen? Does that mean mistakes aren't going to happen or things that complicate life aren't going to happen? No. It just means that along the way, you'll have learned enough skills, you'll have enough support, and you'll feel validated enough to find your way out of those banks and back into the river of well-being. So when you see someone and you know that they're encountering a mental health concern, I want you to imagine this visual in your brain. And I want you to think to yourself, where are they? Are they in a place of chaos where they seem completely out of control? Are they in a place of rigidity where they need to know exactly what's coming next? And what can I do today to be one small difference that helps them find their way back to the river of well-being? Whether that's getting them the referral they need for mental health services, whether it's helping them with schoolwork, getting them involved in a church, getting them involved in a group, helping them find employment, anything that it possibly might be, any role that you can play will slowly take a person out of the bank that they're stuck in and bring them back to the river of well-being. So please know and understand, and if you take anything away from today, take away the fact that you can be the change, you can make the difference, and you can help someone find their river of well-being, or what we like to call the integration of well-being. So we all know those people, and we can all think of those situations where we're seeing signs and symptoms of mental health being revealed to us. So just to list a few: illegal activity, substance use, risky behavior, irrational thinking, negative patterns of thinking, constant state of fear, sadness, or anger, irritability, isolation, change in behavior or personality, having really low energy, being dishonest, attempting to hide behaviors or choices from others, arguing or fighting, suicidal thoughts or self-harming thoughts, or having actual actions of harming themselves or others. So all of these are signs and symptoms of mental health. All of these, if you notice someone having these signs, is our duty to help ensure that they get the services that they need. But for sure, if you know of anyone in the community, in your life, or anyone around you that is having any form of suicidal thought or self-harming thought, I want to encourage you to get them the help they need immediately. Help them seek out the crisis line, help them get to the closest ER, whatever you need to do to ensure that in that moment they are safe until they can be the change for themselves that they need to be. So the primary diagnoses in Iowa for mental health: ADHD is present within children and adolescents. 9.4% or 6.1 million children or adolescents have received an ADHD diagnosis somewhere between the ages of 3 and 17. I know we're all thinking kids with ADHD are hyper, they tend to talk a lot, they move a lot, they can't pay attention, right? Those are some of the symptoms and signs of ADHD. And things like helping them come up with time management, helping them find ways to be present in the moment, giving them activities that they can participate in where they can focus their attention is key to helping those kids be able to find the change for themselves in order to take that attention and bring it back to focus on something positive. Another diagnosis that's common in people of all ages is anxiety. So 7.1% or 4.4 million have received an anxiety diagnosis between the ages of 3 and 17, and 31.1% of adults experience some form of anxiety disorder in their lifetime. So when we think of anxiety, we think of racing heart, sweating, stomach hurting, headache, racing thoughts, fear, lots of fortune telling about things that might happen, mind reading about what other people think, thinking about the worst case scenario, or what we like to call catastrophizing in the mental health field. Just lots of forms of overthinking, determining that we know exactly what's going to happen next when we really have no idea. The best form of help for people with anxiety is to help them recognize what thoughts they're having that are driving the feeling of anxiety. Because as they can start to look at their thoughts, they can recognize that most of those thoughts are fearful and most are not grounded in reality. And then at that point, they can use the skills that maybe somebody has taught them in order to get back to a place of reality. Another key diagnosis is major depressive disorder, which again can be impacted by all ages. 3.2% or 1.9 million have received the diagnosis between the ages of 3 and 17, and 6.7% of adults have experienced depression in the last year. So this being said, when we think of people with depression, we think of people that are sad, that have low energy, that really struggle to get up and maybe do their day-to-day demands. If we're working with people in the community, we often think about people that maybe struggle to get to work, struggle to keep a job. Parents maybe struggle to get their kids to school. They struggle to perform at work. The kids struggle to perform at school. Any signs that people are really struggling with their confidence, their self-esteem, their feelings of self-worth are all signs that depression might be present for them. So getting up and helping them be the change for themselves is very important with people struggling with depression. Not making them feel bad for the fact that they don't have energy or they can't necessarily get themselves up and moving, but rather finding really small ways that they can get themselves up. Whether it's this week, I'm going to aim to take a shower. This week, I'm going to fill out one application. This week, I'm going to get to work on time twice. Anything small and achievable will slowly start to build confidence for these individuals. Bipolar disorder is typically adults over the age of 21, but that's not necessarily the case in all cases. 4% of people are diagnosed with bipolar disorder throughout their lifetime. When we think of individuals diagnosed with bipolar disorder, we think of individuals that have some frequent changes in mood. They have the highs and they have the lows. We think of mania. We think of when people get to the depression stage. Overall, a lot of stigma that surrounds bipolar disorder is believing that those people are out of control. They can't contain their emotions. They are up one minute and down the next. But what I really want to challenge you to think is that we just have to be able to determine what is their behavior driving, what is happening inside of their brain with those chemicals that are imbalanced that is really determining why they're having the reaction they're having. So maybe if they do have this diagnosis, helping ensure that they have the psychiatric treatment they need, they have the therapy they need, and that they have things that are very predictable and that are very reliable held throughout their day. And the last one that I want to review is the substance use and addictive disorders. So this can be all ages. It's typically 12 years and older. 9.2 million adults are living with co-occurring disorders, which means they're living with a mental health disorder as well as a substance use or addictive disorder. And 4% of adolescents are struggling with SUD between the ages of 12 and 17. Substance use is becoming stronger and stronger every year within Iowa and within the United States around. This is partially because of access, partially because of increase in the ability to make and sell some of the substances. Part of it is simply because of raising awareness. Regardless of the reasoning, this is something that we need to bring to light. And again, this is a very common one that I want to talk about, breaking the stigma, because I know it becomes very easy to look at somebody's substance use or addictive behavior as a risky choice or something that they're doing that's illegal. But I want to challenge everyone to try to remember that it is a mental health concern. It is something that requires treatment, and it is something that requires understanding. Most people will relapse. Most people require a lot of attention based on their services, based on groups, different things in their life that are going to bring them to that stage of recovery. But I just want to challenge everyone to have the mindset, regardless whether we're dealing with these mental health concerns or we're dealing with substance use, that recovery is possible if we can rally around them as a community. We can rally around them as our families. We can rally around them at work or school, wherever it is. If they have a team rallied around them, their chances of actually reaching that place is significantly higher. So I just want to encourage you, if you are thinking that you have thoughts that are maybe negative about any of these diagnoses, to really dig deeper and maybe get a better understanding of what they actually mean so that you can have a more open-minded approach when you encounter these individuals. So that being said, I just want to talk a little bit about the mental health stigma that is present. Do we think mental health stigma is present in Iowa? So to test this, again, we're not live, so you're not gonna have to say your answers out loud, but I just want you to think it to yourself as I read you this quiz. And it's simply a yes or no answer. So the first question, there's no real difference between the terms mentally ill or has a mental illness. True or false, yes or no? Number two, people with mental illness tend to be dangerous and unpredictable. True or false, yes or no? Number three, I would worry about my son or daughter marrying someone with a mental illness. True or false, yes or no? Number four, I don't know if I could trust a coworker who has a mental illness. True or false, yes or no? Number five, I'm scared of or stay away from people who appear to have a mental illness. True or false, yes or no? Number six, people with a mental illness are lazy or weak and need to just get over it. True or false, yes or no? Number seven, once someone has a mental illness, they will never fully recover. True or false, yes or no? And number eight, I would hesitate to hire someone with a mental health concern. True or false, yes or no? So with this quiz, the scoring is very easy. Anything that you said true or yes to is a point, and anything you said false or no to is a 0. If you scored even 1 point, that means that you have some kind of mental health stigma thought within your mind. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you have an entirely stigmatic brain, but rather it simply means that when we're talking about mental health and we're talking about the way that we perceive these individuals, whether adults, children, adolescents, teenagers, elderly, that we have at times different stigma thoughts attached. So how do we reduce that stigma? We're going to talk about 5 ways to do that. The first way is don't label people who have a mental health disorder. People know that they have a mental illness. They know that they have probably been diagnosed with a mental illness. However, in the community, when dealing with people at our workplace, when dealing with children in school, when encountering teenagers, we don't want to label them with having a mental health disorder or having a mental illness, but rather we just want to let them be able to identify what they need. So please, as the person in the community or as the person around them in their life, don't label them. The second thing is to don't be afraid or make others afraid of people who have a mental health disorder or a mental illness. People, yes, sometimes have risky behaviors. Yes, sometimes act impulsively. And yes, sometimes are unpredictable when they have mental health concerns, but so are people who don't. So don't be afraid of these individuals and don't make other people afraid of them. They're just like you or I. They're just having mental health concerns. The third, don't use disrespectful words when describing people with mental health disorders or with mental illness. A lot of times it's really easy to use the words like, oh, they're just being crazy, or they're being lazy, or they're having a psychotic episode, or they're just unmotivated. Any of those kinds of words. They're being defiant, they're being naughty. All of these words have a stigma, and that stigma comes across in the way that we explain people and their behaviors. So again, remember that the behaviors are the behaviors, they're not the person. So don't use disrespectful words to describe those people. The fourth thing is don't blame others or be insensitive to people with mental health disorders. So as the people in the community, as the people on their team, as their employer, as their teacher, as those around them, don't blame them for the fact that they have a mental illness, and work on not being insensitive to whatever that mental illness is. I know sometimes it can be daunting hearing about somebody's mental health concern or seeing the mistakes that they make over and over again, and it becomes easier to be a little bit insensitive when it comes to validating and supporting and really walking beside them. But I'm telling you that the validation, the support, and walking beside them is what's actually going to start to create the change. But blaming or being insensitive is going to continue to drive those behaviors even further because they're going to feel judged. So the last thing that you can do, and this is probably the most important, is to be a role model for change. Nothing is going to change without each and every one of us working towards changing the stigma of mental health. We need to be the people that are going to stand up and say, that wasn't right. This person wasn't treated fairly. This family needs more help. This student needs more help. This individual needs more accommodations at work. In general, we have to, as a community, be able to come to a place of understanding of what mental health is, not be scared of it, not judge it, but rather bring it full force, just like we do with physical health, and really be a role model that we need for change. So with the community change, why is community important? Community is important because it brings people a sense of belonging, it brings people a sense of support, and it brings people a sense of purpose. Communities help individuals to dig into the values, beliefs, interests, and goals they have, and it helps them to join along with others who have similarities, which creates a sense of being on this journey together and not being alone. Having a mental illness makes a person feel very isolated and alone if they don't have a team around them and they don't have a community supporting them. Oftentimes, people with mental health concerns state that their biggest supporters, their biggest advocates, and their biggest allies are people who are on their treatment team or people who we would consider paid supports. In my mind, this is one of the biggest letdowns for an individual and for a community, because I would love nothing more to be able to tell someone that I'm working with that they have built the greatest sense of community, the greatest group of people, and they have found their purpose and no longer need to talk with me, who's a paid support to them. I would love to see the community be able to create change, be able to create a sense of belonging for anyone, no matter what their mental health status, no matter what their beliefs, no matter what their values, just to walk alongside them, help find each and every person a purpose, and to help them belong where they are. So all of those things help a person feel whole, they help a person reach a place of well-being, and they help a community reach a place of health. So as a community, what can we do? As a community, these are going to seem like very simple things, but as a community, we can show kindness by saying something as simple as, "Are you okay?" and actually listening, and by showing empathy and attention, by recognizing that it's not about the fill in the blank, it's not about the mental health, it's not about the behavior, it's not about the feeling, it's not about this episode, but rather it is about needing help. It is about needing validation. It is about feeling alone. It is about feeling unworthy. Whatever we can fill in the blank with, that it is about, to recognize what it's not about. So I have two videos that I'm going to show you. One is just a very basic clip about mental health awareness that just helps us understand how showing kindness can truly change a community. And the other is just kind of a silly, but also very impactful video that I like to show people about being empathetic and showing attention. And it's called that it's not about the nail.
Phil Dobson here, author of The Brain Book and founder of Brain Workshops. Welcome to Mental Health Awareness Week 2020. You know, I think that most of us in the last couple of months have probably become more aware than ever of the critical importance of physical health, right? And yet I wonder now if we've also become a bit more aware of our own mental health and maybe even its fragility. Personally, I've certainly had a hard time over the last few weeks. I feel like I got COVID-19, fortunately recovered, and then since then I found out that one of my dearest friends has become very ill with something other than COVID, I'm sad to say. So I've been probably more aware than ever of my own vulnerability, physically and mentally. Now, this week, Mental Health Awareness Week, is so important, and I think maybe this year as important, if not more important than ever. The theme this year is kindness, and I can't think of really anything that would be more appropriate. Kindness to others, kindness to self. So really, with that in mind, perhaps some questions to consider over the coming week. Thinking about other people first. When have people shown you kindness? I think it's nice to reflect upon the kindness of others, even sometimes the kindness of strangers. You know, certainly in the UK, our fresh gratitude and love for the NHS is something that's probably long overdue. And I wonder whether in our own lives there are equivalents where we think of people we can now identify who have shown us immense kindness over the years. I think just that alone makes us more appreciative, more grateful for others. Then thinking about when you have shown kindness to others, reflect on that. Maybe are there times where you could have been kinder? And then the third piece, maybe the most valuable, how can you now become kinder going forward? Not just thinking of an individual you're going to be kinder to, but how could you turn this into more of a habit, more of a behavior, more of a lifestyle, almost like a value going forward? But then kindness to yourself. I wonder if we feel like we've been kind enough to ourselves over the last 2 months. You know, have you prioritized your own rest and recovery? So again, maybe a couple of things to consider here. Are you someone that typically is kind enough to yourself? Not just maybe in terms of your language. Often I think that, you know, we talk to ourselves in ways that we would never talk to someone else. But just your priorities and how you've typically spent your time. Have you been kind to yourself? And then going forward, what do you need to do to acknowledge that you need to be kinder? Are there things you need to let go of? Maybe even things you need to forgive yourself for? But then going forward, you know, what are you going to do in the next couple of weeks or longer to demonstrate kindness to yourself? Self-care, self-kindness, maybe even self-compassion. So how can I help? Well, look, I am going to provide in the comments below a link that if you follow, you'll get free access to a meditation and mindfulness online course I've created. It's just a short course, but it's yours.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way.
Free of charge. And if you'd like to share that with someone else.
We can work it.
So thinking about those videos, thinking about ways that we can show kindness, empathy, and attention to others, I just want to go through some well-being concepts that we are going to talk about, especially when we're thinking about mental health and having a community of strong mental health and understanding ways that we can all reach a place of mental well-being. So if we think back to our river of well-being and we think about the fact that it's when we're in the middle, we're peacefully going down the river, we're on the countryside, we're seeing the scenery, we're handling things well, that's when we just would describe ourselves as being in a place of well-being. So when we're in a place of well-being as an individual, why does that really matter for the community? Well, it matters for the community because positive outcomes mean that society and the community at large also have positive outcomes, because a person who would say that they're in a place of well-being would describe their lives as going well and being in a good place. So when we think about a person being in a good place, we think about a lot of factors, such as their housing, their employment, their school, their childcare, the assistance they receive, services they receive, any community activities that they're involved with, any socialization that they do, so on and so forth. So everything that encounters that person during their day, if they are considering themselves to be in a place of well-being, they are saying all of those things wrapped together around them is bringing them to that place of well-being, which means that's lots of good points for the community. Along with that, well-being integrates mental health and physical health, resulting in a holistic prevention and health promotion. So again, as a community, we can figure out how not just to focus on mental health, not just focus on physical health, but rather focus on the holistic self, so that when we start to figure out ways to prevent, we can really promote the overall health and wellness of a person. By having well-being, that builds resiliency, healthier behaviors, productivity, social connectedness, and a sense of belonging in one's community and in their environment. People who are in a place of well-being enjoy the relationships they're in. They enjoy going out to Walmart and seeing people. They enjoy encountering others at the school. They love what they're involved with. In general, they feel like their community is really a place that's supporting them and their environment is really healthy. So as a community, we really are striving to ensure that all members of our community, whether healthy, whether mental health concerns, whether physical health concerns, whether children, adults, adolescents, teenagers, elderly, whoever they are, that they are reaching the point of resiliency and well-being so that they can truly feel cared for and taken care of. So the last thing that having well-being is important for, and just overall for the community to be involved with, is because that measuring, tracking, and promoting this place of well-being is useful for all the stakeholders that are involved in any form of prevention and promotion work. So anyone involved in the community, anyone involved in nonprofit work, typically public health, lots of different agencies and different stakeholders are involved with really trying to figure out how for people and for communities we get to a place of prevention and promote that place of prevention. So by working together to be that change, to show that kindness, to show that empathy, and to give true attention to all members of our community, we're then able to track some really good data that helps us promote lots more ways that we can prevent instead of react. So when we're talking about this, we're going to talk about some resources, okay? So I have a whole list of resources that are available for you if you would like. You can email me at aonler@championmind.org and we'll get you that list of specific resources. So it has all the specific areas within this surrounding counties listed. It has phone numbers for them and it says what they provide. But some of the basic examples are therapy, medication management, daycare, respite, CASA, the kids program, the YMCA scholarships, integrated health homes, family crisis center, Upper Des Moines, food banks, VHIS services, AEA, the Season Center crisis line, and so on. The list goes on and on from there. I just want to remind everyone that whether it's someone personally close to you, whether it's someone that you encountered on the street, whether it's someone you encounter in your workplace, around the community, anywhere, that you might be the change for them that they need. You might be the person that's helping them access these services for the first time. And now more than ever, it's so easy to get help because so many places are offering telehealth. So many places don't have wait lists thanks to this. And it's much more convenient for the people that are participating because there's not the travel, there's not the expenses. They don't necessarily have to miss as much school or work. So now is the time. If you have individuals in your life or that you have encountered or that you know would benefit, please don't hesitate to reach out for those resources. Don't hesitate to talk with those people, to truly ask if they're okay, to truly listen, and to just be that person that helps them get through the day. Again, I would like to remind everyone that there's going to be a live Q&A session following the rollout of this presentation. The date and time is to be determined, but it will be announced. That will be live with myself and anyone from this community forum that is wanting to participate. So that is a great place for you to bring questions, concerns, things that you would like to know going forward, anything that you might like to talk about. That's a great place to bring it. If you have anything that you would like answered beforehand or any conversations you would like to have, please email me at aonler@championmind.org. Contact Champion if you have any concerns, any referrals, anything that you need at all. Please know that we are here to help. We are happy to help. It is always our share. It's our pleasure, and we love what we do. So whether today, whether tomorrow, in a month, in a year, if you encounter people who need it, just work to be that change. Work to break down the stigma and just understand that mental health is mental health. It's not the person. It's not a choice. It's not something that they have decided for themselves. It's something that's happening to them, and they need a team. They need a team to rally around them. They need a team to support them, to love them, to help them feel like they belong, and to truly just be a part of their journey with them. So I encourage you today to go out, find a way to be a part of that community, be a part of that change for people, and really just help people know that we are all in this together. We are all one, and we all will get through anything that comes along our way. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions, again, email me at aonler@championmind.org or join us for the live session that will be scheduled at a later date. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day.